Did you hear that 91% of guys that use Dove Men Plus Care antiperspirant recommend it? Dove Men Plus Care user Rob said that it's like the Hoover Dam, but for his armpits. Well, if it can hold back that much sweat, Rob, it must be good. Pick up some new Dove Men Plus Care antiperspirant for yourself at your local retailer.
Good Thursday morning to you. It is Mike and Mike on ESPN Radio and ESPN2. But Greeny's out today. Will Cain in for Greeny, along with the guy that holds it down, Mike Golic, Sr.
I have a few things. First, I love Nick Saban, and I can't wait to play that. Nick Saban is already in midseason form. He is just phenomenal to listen to. As we actually have college football, coming up pretty soon as well as the NFL. Second, nervous doing the show with you because you're a lawyer and you use big words.
Okay.
So that always can scare me. So people learn, like when Billis comes on, he knows if he uses big words against me, it could be in his favor because a lot of times I have to look the word up and then put it in context of what he was saying. So, you have that advantage as well.
I'm nervous too. I just don't want you to get mad at me.
I'm not a physical person. There are times, and I've done this a lot over the 18 years, and I've certainly been guilty of it, is where I think if I yell louder, it makes me right.
Well, I think most people subscribe to that philosophy, so I'm going to practice it throughout the day.
Just talking really loud when you want to.
Yes.
Because you always stay calm, and a guy like Billis always stays calm, and that makes me even more worried, then because I just try and talk louder, and I'm sure as people watch and listen say, oh, he's just yelling. He's trying to yell because his point isn't as good as he thinks, so he figures if he raises the volume on it, that it'll be a better point all of a sudden.
All I'm going to do for the next 4 hours is measure your eyes and see how intense is he with this point. Because if I see anger, I'm out. Ripcord, next argument, let's move on to off the top.
I won't get physical with you. Just know that. Because I went through 18 years of Greeny trying to bait me into that just so he could sue me and take my money. Because he said that's the first thing he would do. That he has told people, either Golic will make a fool of himself being wrong and yelling, or he'll hit me and I'll just take all his money. And then the third thing is I'm a little disappointed in my son, Mike Jr. Now, you've worked with him in the past a few times, right?
Yes.
We have never done a show together. Now, Mike was supposed to be on today for an hour. So not only did he not do his show, first and last, Will Reeve was doing the show today. He was supposed to be on an hour of this show, but he's doing the show with Rusilla today. Which is cool, absolutely cool. But, he's 27 years old. Do you think he could have done an hour on this show and still done Ryan's show? Where's the want to, right? I thought I taught my kids a little more work ethic and passion than that. You're young, you're breaking into the biz. You get out there and you do different things. Get on the old man show for an hour, take a little nap, and go on with Rusilla. But no.
All right.
No, Mr. I just finished 28 hours, of a fantasy football marathon, needs his little CP.
Here's this. So this is going to fall on deaf ears because he's sleeping right now. But I want to tell you something. Junior, as you're listening. Hopefully your mom can wake you up. Shake the bed very gently. Shake the bed very gently to wake you up.
Well, you think he still lives at home?
Actually, that is what I picture in my mind. That is.
He's got his own place now.
The conversation that you and I had, that your dad and I had, Junior, right before we went on the air was, how do you draw the line between coaching and parenting? In other words, you want to teach your kid all these life lessons that you impart through sports, but one day you wake up and your wife's like, you know what? You're his dad, not his coach. And what I just realized after all the lessons you taught me before the cameras went on is you're still coaching Junior.
I am.
Right now
can't separate
through the prism of his job.
I am. I can't separate it. Coach, Dad, what am I here? But all I know is he bailed on the show for an hour because he had to work a little later, and I figured I would take the time to rip him. So that's my opening statement.
Okay, all right.
I figured I would do it that way. Well, something else that we're going to get into today, we haven't done it yet. We figure we'll start today. We have NFL games tonight, 3 of them. Baltimore at Miami, Buffalo, Philadelphia, and Tampa Bay at Jacksonville. We're going to do a little Grill Golic. I know we haven't done the show together, but we're going to Grill Golic. We're going to tell people to ask anything they want. If you want to be football related, great. Sports related, fine. Outside of sports, that's fine. You can ask whatever you want, but a lot of people usually like to ask the football questions out. But anything you would like to do, so hashtag it at Mike and Mike is our Twitter feed. Hashtag Grill Golic. You can do it to mine as well, at ESPN Golic. You can do it at Will Cain as well. Throw questions there. So we'll get questions everywhere. Just hashtag everything Grill Golic. Could be about football, just sports in general, or outside of sports. we can go down that road as well. I'm pretty hot in the entertainment world as well.
You're big over there?
Oh, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I read all those rag magazines all the time. You kidding me? You see Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie holding off on the divorce now, maybe trying to make it work. I mean, seriously, we got some good stuff going on out there.
All right, the show is presented by Progressive Insurance, and all guests are on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Again, that's hashtag @GrillGolic. Any questions you want, I have one already, which I'm going to get to in a moment with you to get this thing started. But first, let's get to Off the Top.
Off the Top.
Well done.
Off the top, Aaron Judge struck out for the 33rd consecutive game on Wednesday, setting the record for the longest streak within a single season by a non-pitcher, according to the Elias Sports Bureau. He's also just 2 games shy of matching the longest streak within a season by any player, regardless of position. It wasn't all bad, however, as he did launch one 469-foot homer for the win.
Yeah, it's a shame that's the ending line and not the beginning line. The beginning line for him has been the strikeouts. I mean, as you mentioned, 33 games straight. So Adam Dunn, who he was tied with, is breathing a sigh of relief because he doesn't now have the most as a position player. And that's the tough part for Judge now. He's coming up on pitchers because you would figure pitchers would be in the conversation at the top. And again, back in 1971, Vida Blue, 34 games, Bill Stoneman, 35. Aaron Judge is right there. So if he starts catching pitchers, that's going to be bad. He did hit that bomb, though, and he has 37 home runs now. We keep talking about wanting that race with Stanton, who, as we'll get to, at some point did not hit a home run last night, but still knocking the ball out of the yard. He did hit a big one. As a matter of fact, the longest home runs at Citi Field this year have all come, the top 5 have come from the opponent and not from anybody on the Mets. So that's a bummer for them. But, yeah, he hit an absolute bomb last night, but continues the strikeout streak.
What a tale of 2 seasons for Aaron Judge. I mean,
do you think the home run – everybody talks about the home run derby and swinging the bat. Stanton, by the way, was in the home run derby as well. Now he lost in the first round, and he's knocking the cover off the ball all over the place out of the park. Do you think that has anything to do with it?
What?
The home run derby. They say
he shot his arm?
You ruin your swing doing the home run derby.
Yeah.
I've had too many baseball people tell me that's ridiculous, and no.
I think the pitchers are figuring him out.
I think that's exactly right. He is a rookie. He's a young player, and I agree. I think pitchers are figuring him out.
What have I heard? Low and away. That's what they figured out. Low and away is Stan's hole. I don't know. Maybe not. I just kind of threw that out there.
Yeah, that's okay. Nothing wrong with that.
Off the Top.
Himbo will correct you at some point.
Get on me, Himbo, would you? Yeah. Floyd Mayweather and Conor McGregor to fight with 8-ounce gloves on August 26th. The Nevada Athletic State Commission voted unanimously in favor of a one-time exception to allow Mayweather and McGregor to fight with the smaller gloves for their 154-pound bout. Per the NSAC's rules, their own regulations, any boxing match contested over 147 pounds, Golic, mandates 10-ounce gloves.
Now, Mayweather has fought most of his career below that, so he's used 8-ounce gloves most of his career. And as we talked about with McGregor in MMA, it's 4-ounce gloves that they use. So they didn't want the 10-ounce gloves. I'm sure a lot of people are saying 2 ounces. Come on, you're swinging around 2 ounces a little more can tire you out. Plus, you want your hit to be felt. And, the smaller the glove, you can feel it a little more as well. Plus, Mayweather's used to it. I mean, he's used to 8-ounce gloves. So you could see this one coming, and they had to sign waivers. So once you sign a waiver, I'm sure the commissioner, go ahead, do what you want.
I think
just sign the waiver.
We're talking about this because we all think it's something that could slightly, possibly, marginally tilt towards Conor McGregor.
Right.
Isn't that why this is an issue?
Sure it is. Everything with this thing is an issue, and everything they do and talk about is to clicks. Get the clicks, get the pay-per-views, and that's it.
Yeah, which is also false. This will not tilt the bout. But
Off the Top.
Week 2 of the NFL preseason, as you just mentioned a few moments earlier, Golic, gets underway Thursday night, including the Jaguars and Buccaneers meeting at 8 Eastern on ESPN. Both teams are trying to reach the playoffs this season for the first time since 2007. Only the Bills in 1999, the Browns in 2002, and the Rams in 2004 have longer active NFL playoff droughts.
Yeah, I think if you look at the two teams, I don't think there's any doubt that you would think it would be Tampa Bay that could reach the playoffs first. Now, Tampa Bay is in a division with a lot of people think Carolina will be back to being better again this year. And they were 2 years ago were in the Super Bowl. Last year, Atlanta was in the Super Bowl and obviously has a ton of offensive firepower. But Jameis Winston, another year, getting a little older in the league. Obviously, you love Evans. They get Deshaun Jackson. I've been watching the Hard Knocks. I absolutely love it. So let's see if this team can take the next step. Or Jacksonville, I think they're on their last legs of Blake Bortles. I don't think after this year, even if he finishes this year, is going to be the quarterback of the future for that team. They've been spending money in free agency, especially on defense. They've been trying to build that team, but unfortunately not to a lot of success. And I think it's either Tennessee or Houston that's going to be the class of that division this year.
Speaking of Blake Bortles, you see what his teammates are doing.
Yeah.
Instagram.
Yeah, it's been tough for Blake. It doesn't seem to be a real cohesive thing going on down there right now.
Jalen Ramsey liked an article on Instagram that talked about how to replace Blake Bortles.
Yeah.
Best options to replace Blake Bortles.
Yeah, not great. Not great what's going on down there. A lot of frustration.
Off the top.
And as you mentioned, Giancarlo Stanton's home run streak snapped at 6 games, and now he sets the goal at 61. Stanton didn't homer against the Giants Wednesday, but he said he's shooting for 61 and said he finds baseball statistical history both alluring but also tainted. Stanton is on pace for 61 homers. Babe Ruth hit a record 60 homers in 1927, and Stanton said he gives that achievement an asterisk because the sport wasn't integrated yet. Mantle's teammate Roger Maris broke the record with 61 home runs in 1961. Barry Bonds set the record with 73 and 01 during the steroids era, and Stanton said he also considers that total tainted. And this is Stanton's quote. I do, meaning consider it tainted, but at the same time, it doesn't matter. The record is the record.
Yeah, I know. We talked a lot about that yesterday. I know you guys, I believe, touched on it on First Take as well.
No, I talked about it with you actually. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, with us. I didn't know if it carried over to First Take or not.
No, there was some more tense conversations.
Yeah, I was going to say, you guys got after it a little bit yesterday. This has obviously been a big topic. Greeny threw out a poll yesterday of would you, the public, consider it the record if he broke 61, did he break the real record? And 56% said no, the record is 73. And at the end of the day, it is. It's just a matter of what we think because it's all about public opinion as we get into the NFL and the NFLPA. That's, one of the things they're battling for is public opinion. So that's what we like to look at a lot is public opinion of what do you think in this situation. The record is 73. It's not going to change, but should it be noted differently in the record books than other things?
No. That is off
the top.
All right, what everyone's talking about is brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better parts, better prices every day. Let's just do that, what you just mentioned. I struggle with this, Golic. On one hand, I feel like if I ask you a question, I don't need a paragraph in return for the answer, especially on something as simple as, hey, what's the home run record in baseball? I don't need you to go through, Babe Ruth, 60, but asterisk. Barry Bonds, 73, but you know what, asterisk. I don't want to have to listen to a 30-second exposition before you get to the answer of what the home run record is. That is how I feel on one hand. It should be black and white. It should be in the record books. It's something that most of us should be able to agree upon. On the other hand, that debate, that is sports. That bar debate is what we love about sports. I just feel like we need a starting point. Let's start with Bonds and then move on from there.
Yeah, I think, and before we continue, Stanton actually addressed this yesterday, so let's hear it from his own mouth of his thoughts about 61 being the record, and just his thought, is 62 a record in his mind, or is it 73?
I mean, you grow up watching Sandlot, you grow up watching all the old films of Babe Ruth and Mantle and these guys, and 61's always been kind of that printed number as a kid.
Do you consider that the home run number?
Considering some things, I do, but at the same time, it doesn't matter. The record's the record. But personally, I think I do, yeah.
So, I mean, that's where we are. To your point of the question, he gave a little more of a paragraph answer. Not only Bonds, but integration as well in baseballs when Babe Ruth was playing. And this has been my thought, and I brought this up a few times, Will, and people, and again, people think I back steroids and say use them whenever you want. I did use steroids when I came off my shoulder. If for those that may not know, I had a total shoulder reconstruction in '88, and in that offseason, right after it, I did steroids for a 6-8 week cycle because I knew I had to get back on the field by minicamp or I wasn't going to have a job. And I was back in time for minicamp. And the question is there, do you think I would have been back anyway? And the answer is I don't know, but I felt I needed to do that. It wasn't on the books then. There was no testing then in the NFL, so it was illegally written that you can't do it, but it wasn't tested for. So I did it. I knew I wasn't going to get tested for once the testing started. That was the only time I ever did it. I never did it again, but I did do it. So as that is the backdrop, so anytime I talk about steroids, people think I'm jaded for it, that everybody should be able to use it, especially when I said the steroid users I think should be in the Hall of Fame. It is part of the history of the game.
Quick question. With everybody asking you that, I'm curious, do you have any regrets about using it?
Oh, sure. I mean, yeah, you don't want to. There are times when you don't want to artificially, I sit there and say that, and I guess this is the point I'm getting to. There are lines of being artificial because I took every pain injection and pain pill I could to play on Sundays. So where's the line? You know, I was artificially masking any injury I had so I could play. I would stick a needle anywhere and I would take any pill so I could play on Sunday. And I was always asked, well, aren't you concerned about your body at 40 or 50? I said, I'm concerned about playing on Sunday. That was my mentality. And I'm not saying it's the greatest mentality in the world, but all it had to be is for me to justify it, right? That was the only reason. So in talking about the steroids and when the conversation gets crazy about PEDs, my thought is, and even with Stanton, so what did Stanton bring up? He brought up integration. He brought up the PEDs. And you know what I keep bringing up, and you know what is forgotten? The last I checked, and you can't tell me it didn't affect record books, amphetamines. Did amphetamines affect record books?
I'm sure it did.
You know, and the argument I get is, well, it doesn't do as much as steroids. Let me ask you a question. Are amphetamines illegal? Are steroids illegal? You take them to help you, to help, right? You're not taking an amphetamine to say, you know what, this does nothing for me, but let me take it anyway. You're taking it for a reason, just like you're taking PEDs for a reason. So that all went on forever. I mean, it was like in the NFL when, you know, pain pills would be in a candy dish, you know. But amphetamines were illegal. And they were taken all the time. And it was just a wink and a nod, and you knew it. So and you can't tell me that didn't, maybe not enhancing the way PEDs enhanced the home run number, but does it still mean it didn't enhance anything at all? Did it do anything? People say, oh, it just helped them play the next game. It gave them the energy. Well, okay. So they were artificially pepped up to play another game, which could get them a hit, which could do something for them, or a home run that could do something. Were balls doctored? Did pitchers doctor baseballs? Is that legal, illegal?
Clearly
did it help
yes.
Did it help their stats? Do those pitchers still have those stats in the record books? My point is there are things throughout baseball that have affected the record books. Now, no doubt there's a degree to them. So that's my question. Where's your line? Okay, we don't accept the PEDs. Amphetamines is fine. Fine. We accept that of how that helped somebody artificially create a number that's in a record book somewhere. It's always at the top of the record book. Could be a guy that's in third place in some statistic somewhere that the amphetamine helped them. But you know what you can't do is you can't point to it specifically and say, well, that helped them get that record in that record book. Where with PEDs, you can point to that and say, look at the home run guys right now. All of them have some either tested positive for it or have something hanging around them about steroids, so you can point directly to it, which makes it the easiest target.
So let me
ask. That makes sense at all?
Absolutely. But let me ask your question back to you then.
Okay.
Where is your line?
My line is, when I say this, you're going to think I say do whatever you want. My line is accept them all as this went on. So this went on.
So Bonds' 73, to your argument in mind, is no more tainted than any record set in the 70s when greenies were passed out in the locker room.
That's where it does get dicey because you can point to that. So is it more than the amphetamines? But does that make it okay? Does that make it only okay to only point at Bonds or the PED users and not point at the guys that use amphetamines? That's why my point is we are so adamant about keeping these guys out and making sure if they go in, there's something written in there that says this was the steroid era and this is why these guys got the numbers that they did. When amphetamines, it's hard to point to specifically to say how it helped, but you damn well can't tell me it didn't. You can't. They're not taking them to not help. Artificially help you, and amphetamines were illegal, like steroids were illegal unless they're prescribed for you. So I guess that's my point. There's something that went on along the line in the game of baseball, in any sport, that went on that, in my mind, you can't just specifically point to one thing and said, that's ruining baseball. Let's keep those guys out of the Hall of Fame. And our line says we'll let those guys in the Hall of Fame. So
you're getting louder.
I know.
And so
okay.
I'm measuring your eye contact.
Okay.
I'm on my heels. There is no rebuttal coming. I want you to know you have successfully, through the tone of your voice, set the standard of where this debate is going. No, I'm joking you.
I get ripped for that.
I hear your passion, and the truth of the matter is you are touching on a very sensitive debate that goes well beyond the baseball diamond. We will have debates from time to time on ESPN. We'll have it in general society. Should the NFL begin to accept marijuana as a pain relieving drug?
Right.
Should we legalize marijuana in states like Colorado, Washington? Should we legalize it broader? And a constant rebuttal, and not one without merit, is, but if this is okay, why not the next thing?
Right.
How do you draw lines? Drawing lines is one of the hardest things that we can do in these debates. If I accept marijuana, do I have to accept heroin? If I accept greenies, do I have to accept steroids?
Right.
And by the way, we're not limited to talking about steroids. Now we have the all-encompassing word of PEDs, because what we're really talking about, when it comes to McGuire, we know this was the case, HGH, some of these other drugs.
Right.
All I would say to you is this, and I don't have an answer. I think you've set a very, very good argument down. My answer, to the surprise of many, is I don't know. But I do think about this. Sometimes I don't compare the guy who took greenies against the guy who took HGH. I compare the guy who didn't. And there are those players who didn't take anything, and they're the ones that got cheated.
Yeah, they do get lost in it. I'm with you there.
Guys don't really talk about antiperspirant. Despite that, 91% of Dove Men Plus Care users recommend it. Here's what they said.
It blocks the, perspiration, I think is the fancy word.
It's comfortable. It smells nice. My girl likes the smell.
Well, it's hard.
I think it's quite masculine. My underarms aren't the worst thing at the gym.
It's kind of like the Hoover Dam from my armpits, I guess.
Dove Men Plus Care antiperspirant. Tough on sweat, not on skin.
Hey everyone, Mike Golic here. Support for the Mike and Mike podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. Rocket Mortgage is simple, allowing you to fully understand all the details and be confident you're getting the right mortgage for you. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLS, consumeraccess.org number 3030.
Joining us now in studio, the very dapper, as always, NFL insider, Field Yates.
Thank you, Will. You have sort of a greeny look going on this morning with that button down mid roll up. Yeah.
Well, actually, that's a perfect
part of the
tee up, man. Let me. This is something we're doing this morning. Grill Golic. You're allowed to ask Mike Golic anything you want about football, life.
Favorite kid. Be honest.
What's that?
Favorite kid.
Favorite kid?
Yeah, because I feel like the world knows your children, not just Mike Jr.
Right, but Jake and Sydney as well.
And Sydney as well. First, Jake played, Sydney swam, and they also are all active and popular on social media. Favorite kid?
Yes, that changes daily. Like today, Mike is third. Mike was supposed to be on this show for an hour today. He's doing a show with Rusilla later and didn't feel he should do both. At 27 years old,
what kind of
to have all the energy in the world, where's the work ethic? So he's third.
I got this. Okay, hold on. How old is your youngest?
Sydney is 22.
Over the last 22 years, who has the most time ranked at number one?
There we go. Another way of phrasing it.
Wow. I'd have to break that down.
You are dancing.
There's
maybe your new daughter-in-law.
There's no doubt Sydney has spent the most money, without question, by far. But Mike and Jake added up together. Mike, Jake, and me added up together. Sydney has spent more money than the three of us, no doubt about it. So that by the way is a negative.
Okay? I figured that's where that was.
That's a negative. Now you have two kids. Are they're both boys?
Yeah, they're both boys.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, you'll have some money then.
All right, that you can ask. You folks listening at home can ask Mike Golic whatever you want today. Hashtag Grill Golic on Twitter. Really quickly, I have one because of your point just now. I'm rocking a little bit of a greeny look.
Yes.
But Golic, you've been sitting in this seat for quite some time, navigating that difficult line in corporate America of business casual.
Right.
Which is one of the most difficult lines to navigate. Many companies have done away with business casual because to some people it means flip-flops and others it means khakis. Mm-hmm. 2 buttons down, 1 button down? Am I going too low? It's the eternal debate that has no answer.
I think a lot of it is what do you got going on underneath? You got a lot of hair going on underneath there. So it's just a matter if you're comfortable showing that.
Is that a negative or is that a positive?
No. I think it could be a positive because you got the beard as well. So I think it could work. This is more a fashion question. This is normally where Greeny would jump in.
Right. I was
questions like that. What do you think?
2 buttons down. No doubt about it.
Really?
Yeah, of course.
Bold.
Listen, it's like you're on the beach. It's that mentality. Now, listen, I don't have any chest hair. Shockingly, I'm sure to America, I don't have a ton of chest hair. So I always go 2 buttons down.
Shockingly.
All right.
Not shockingly, apparently, to Mike Golic.
Yeah. We do want to get into some football, not just grill Golic today. But the big topic of the day, Field, seems to be the fight brewing between the NFL and the NFLPA over Zeke Elliott's suspension. Our own Jim Trotter had this to say on the back and forth between the two organizations earlier.
If domestic violence weren't so serious, this whole thing would be laughable. I mean, think about it. You've got the NFL, the masters of getting ahead of the story. Let's not forget Spygate, Bountygate, Deflategate, now publicly accusing someone else of leaking information in a personal conduct case. I mean, it's just hard to wrap your head around that. But what's happening is the league wants to control the narrative as long as it can before Ezekiel Elliott's hearing at the end of the month. And remember, the league has been criticized for the way it has handled domestic violence cases in the past. Just think back to last year. Josh Brown got a 1-game suspension, even though he was arrested on domestic violence charges, even though his then-wife alleged that the league moved her and their children to a different hotel during the Pro Bowl. And now the league seems to have gone to the extreme other end of the spectrum with Elliott here. So clearly the league is sensitive to public perception here and is trying to win in the court of public opinion before the hearing comes down.
I know, Will, you guys were talking about this a bunch, I believe, on First Take yesterday, and I know you dove pretty deep into this one.
You know, I spoke to someone from the NFL last night, and I'm really sympathetic to the position that they are in. They feel like they cannot win. They cannot win. That's what they feel like.
What does winning mean?
Well, that's the point, Field. And ultimately, while I am sympathetic to their position, I'm not sympathetic to the position they have put themselves in.
That's correct.
And that's this. You can't win because you're trying to. You can't win in the court of public opinion because the public cannot determine your policies. It will always change. It will always change with the tides. You have to have a position that you consistently stick with. And this one right here, in the position they've taken over the last 2 days specifically when it comes to Zeke Elliott's suspension, I cannot wrap my mind around.
Well, it's hard for them to win in the court of public opinion because trust has been fractured between not just the NFLPA and the NFL, but the public in the NFL. Whether you have a Tom Brady jersey affixed to your wall in your bedroom or whether you think Tom Brady is the worst person on earth, nobody thought that the way that the NFL handled Deflategate was reasonable and timely and a good look for that side. It was ridiculous. The Greg Hardy case, the Ray Rice case, these things have all been bungled by the NFL. They fumbled these cases seemingly left and right. In the court of public opinion, the NFL probably won't win. With Zeke Elliott, the issue probably stemming in some people's mind, and I think it's important to note this. There's a conversation about the Zeke Elliott case. The case and the matters involving the case that are taking place now are separate from what Zeke Elliott was charged with initially, right? And I'm not saying that we are overlooking the importance of domestic violence, but we are now looking at a case that involves the politics of the NFL versus the NFLPA. So that's going to be part of the story now. It already has become part of the story that these two sides are bickering publicly. But the NFL, that statement yesterday was, as Jim said, it was explosive. I mean, for them to accuse the NFLPA of leaking information, you better expect a harsh response from the NFLPA, which is what they got. And all of a sudden, I'm not saying the story has moved off of what is at the heart of it, which is the NFL and taking a serious stance on domestic violence and helping to try to help put an end to domestic violence incidents. But now all of a sudden, a big part of the story in people's mind is the NFL and the NFLPA sounding like an old married couple fighting with each other and just spewing back and forth. Yeah, the NFL is probably going to look worse in the end because I think the public, the fans, have a lack of trust with this league after what's taken place over the past few years.
Here are those statements you're referencing, Field. This is from the NFL yesterday. Over the past few days, we've received multiple reports from the NFLPA spreading derogatory information to the media about the victim in the Ezekiel Elliott discipline case. These tactics are shameful. Efforts to shame and blame victims are often what prevent people from coming forward to report violence and or seek help in the first place. That from the NFL's Joe Lockhart.
Then from the NFLPA, they said, you read better than I do, so you read it.
The public statement issued on behalf of every NFL owner is a lie. The NFLPA categorically denies the accusations made in this statement. We know the league office has a history of being exposed for its lack of credibility. They should be ashamed of stooping to new lows.
Field, to go to your point of when does it go off topic, it happened in Deflategate. I think 2/3 of that thing or more, we never mentioned what actually happened on the field.
Nothing was deflated.
At some point, it got to a course that both sides had to stay. The NFL was fighting for, whatever part that was in the CBA, 46 or whatever it was, to keep the power. And it became a battle of court, not a battle of was there deflated footballs on the field anymore. And has this gone that route? I look, guys, at a more general thing here because this is my sport. I was in the union. I was part of a strike in 87. And I look at relationships in other sports. I look at the relationship in basketball of NBA and the NBA Players Association. Michelle Roberts running that and Adam Silver, and how they are working together. I mean, it's textbook right now.
Right.
And I look at my sport and the vitriol that's going on between both sides, and it makes me nuts because it's not going to get any better. I don't know if it's going to get better until there's new leadership on one side, the other side, or both sides. I have no idea because there's just headbanging that's going on. In my opinion, they're worried too much about public opinion. Right. But again, it's a sport or it's a business that relies on the public buying tickets. It relies on the public buying memorabilia. And maybe more importantly, it relies on the advertisers giving the big money. So is it public opinion or advertisers' opinion that they're trying to sway to their side? I'm tired. I wish they would stop talking because that's exactly what's going on. Right. This is about public opinion, and you lose sight of what's actually happening in the case itself.
Also yesterday, Roger Goodell appointed Harold Henderson to be the arbiter in Ezekiel Elliott's appeal. He's the same guy who previously had this role for both Greg Hardy and Adrian Peterson's hearings. We know in Greg Hardy's case, Harold Henderson reduced his suspension from 10 games to 4. Golic mentioned this earlier, Field. He said, this relationship between the NFL and the NFLPA is not going to be fixed without a change in leadership. Here's my question for both of you. I'll start with you, Field. Do you see any potential for a change in leadership on either side?
I mean, it's really hard to imagine Commissioner Goodell's tenure coming to a close anytime soon. Of course, he has a contract, and you can say what you want about him. And again, we keep using this word perception. It's sort of the heart of this issue. Yeah, I think if you polled 1,000 NFL fans, yeah, maybe more than half of them don't love Roger Goodell, but it doesn't matter.
But now 2 of the league's most important owners as well.
But first of all, I think that the relationship has certainly smoothed over between Robert Kraft and Roger Goodell. And in time, I imagine that Jerry Jones will have the same.
And the majority of owners, I think, are backing, are fine with.
And the bottom line is, if he has 32 ownership groups happy, Roger Goodell's job probably is not. If the bottom line of the NFL, dollars and cents, continues to rise, his job, I'm not saying is secure infinitely, but something, he's got a pretty good chance of sticking around for quite some time.
While public perception of the league and the mistakes they've made, so the public is against them in a lot of things, I boil it down to this, and I would never ask for anybody's job, and I don't know, DeMorris got voted back in again, so I don't think he's going anywhere anytime soon. These two are going to have to work together, or their groups are going to have to work together. But as far as to your question, what side is losing? What side is feeling on the outside looking in? What side feels like they don't have a say in any of this?
And the answer is
the union. Right? So if players get tired of that enough, do they get tired with leadership from that and say we need a change in this? And I don't think it's going to happen. I'm not calling for that. Don't think it's going to happen. But isn't that how you look at a situation? Which side usually is getting the short end of the stick? And there's a lot that goes to that because owners have deeper pockets. It's tough for players to hold out in a strike situation because they're going to lose the money they're going to lose and the owners lose are two different numbers. So it's difficult for them. They're in a tough position, no doubt about it.
Okay, let's do that. What side is losing? I know that the answer traditionally has been the NFLPA, but let's analyze whether or not that's still the case. What side is losing? I've got something to say about how the last couple of days might have affected the NFL and that. Straight ahead on Mike and Mike.
Well, Greeny, we're halfway through another baseball season, and we're really seeing some players who stand out as winners.
Kind of like business travelers who win at business by staying at La Quinta Inns and Suites.
That's because you can put your La Quinta Returns loyalty points to work on the spot with instant free nights.
Just drive up with no reservation and instantly redeem points for a free night that same night simply by using the La Quinta app.
It's like hitting a grand slam.
With an app instead of a bat.
Well played.
Prepare to win at business by learning more about instant free nights and check out the summer rates at lq.com.
Golic, we were just talking about the NFL. Let me just lay this out to you. Something that really upset me yesterday when it comes to the NFL and the NFLPA's brewing fight that came up yesterday. Increasingly ugly fight between the two. There have been, from the beginning of this investigation, questions about the alleged victim's credibility, whether or not she's told the truth to police, to investigators on the NFL side, legitimate questions. Because in any crime, when testimony is pertinent to the outcome, you got to ask yourself, is this credible? Can this be believed? And if there is a history or evidence of someone not telling the truth, that's pertinent. Now, in the last several days, Yahoo has reported that there might have even been extortion between Zeke and his former girlfriend, revolving around sex tapes and text messages that said this might be a way we can get millions out of Zeke. If the NFL's position is we analyzed these credibility concerns and still decided after weighing it that Zeke is guilty enough by our burden of the proof, I can accept that. I would like to see your evidence.
Right.
But when they do what they did yesterday, which is suggest that any questions about credibility are victim shaming, the NFL's not talking to Zeke. They're not talking to the NFLPA. They're not talking to anyone involved in a conversation. This is back to our conversation about the court of public opinion. They're trying to win in the court of public opinion by suggesting that's beyond the bounds. It's not beyond the bounds if you're concerned about the truth, and the truth matters.
So let's go back to something that you mentioned in that statement there. Was you said, you wish if there's evidence, you wish they could be more transparent to present said evidence that would make you feel more comfortable with the NFL's decision. That might be sort of the rub in this right now, because you wonder what the NFL may know about this situation surrounding Zeke Elliott that it has not made public, and probably never will make public. But if it did make public, if there is some evidence there, maybe that alters our perception of what the 6-game punishment means. I understand your point. I think that what I get back to is at the heart of this matter should be that the NFL not renewed, but altered its efforts to take domestic violence more seriously 2 or 3 years ago, whenever that specific new domestic violence policy was put in place. And yet now, again, for at least a second, if not third time, this domestic violence policy has not become the story, or the domestic violence and improving the efforts to help mitigate domestic violence and champion the cause against domestic violence has not become the story. It's become the NFL versus the NFLPA, and again, we go back to the court of public opinion and public perception, the potentially botched punishment. It's like we're just in this big circle right now where the issue is not domestic violence. People might look at it and say, the issue doesn't feel like domestic violence anymore. The issue feels like these somewhat petty fights between the NFL and the NFLPA.
I agree with that. And quickly, and we'll have more time to do this, Will, on the other side of what you said about the NFL's response to the NFLPA, if you're running the NFLPA, are you making that stuff public? Or are you waiting for the appeal and then throw out everything that the NFL accused them of putting out there publicly? Do you put that out there publicly? Is that going to help your case if you're going into the appeal, hey, we want everybody out there to know that this is kind of what's going on? Or did that start it by making that public first, or should that been something that just is said at the appeals process?
It just goes to show. It just highlights the point we're all making here. They're not in a fight over finding the truth. They're in a fight over controlling what we all think.
Right.
What can I leak? What can I say to influence the public? That's Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE networks. We're losing you now, Field. Is that right?
Thanks,
Sports Center it is.
Sports Center it is. All right. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Home isn't just a place. It's a feeling that you're safe to enjoy the things that matter most. ADT lets you take that feeling with you, whether you're at home, your business, or online. We help keep you safe with security systems, home automation, alarms, and surveillance, so you can feel at home wherever you are. Go to ADT.com to get that feeling for less than $1 a day. ADT. Home, safe home.
In just a matter of moments, Tim Kurkjian, ESPN MLB insider. We got a few things we got to get to Timmy
we do.
about.
One of the things I definitely want to ask you, we touched on it yesterday, with the Stanton hitting all the home runs, Judge striking out a lot, but still hitting a lot of home runs. If there were a home run race today, reminiscent of Sosa and McGwire, would it hold? How close could you get to that craziness? Say it was Stanton and Judge, two guys who everybody at this point believes are clean. They're just large human beings. Stanton has been, they both have been big all their lives, so we haven't heard questions about them. And let's be honest, when that race was going on, Sosa McGwire, everybody loved it. And now, everybody like looks at it and turns their eyes and shields their eyes from it. But what happens if these two guys are in the 50s, and battling back and forth? Is the interest there? I'd be interested to know what Timmy has to say.
And
about
today,
that.
You're asking as well. If it were happening today,
if it were happening today, because of how the home run number has been diminished. But if we had two guys that we believed were clean players battling, and they got into the 40s and into the 50s, where would that hold in the public court of public opinion?
Here's my quick answer to you on that. It'd be a tree falling in the forest.
Yeah, you think?
I don't think many would hear it.
What a shame that would be, especially if it were those two guys. We'll have Timmy, as Will said, in a bit. But we got a lot of grill Golics out there, and I love the football ones, obviously. But it's fun when you go outside of football as well. So we'll try and hit as many as we can.
Yeah, grill Golic. You can ask Mike Golic any questions on NFL, football in general, your life, general life advice from Mike Golic. Here's some of my favorites really quick. First of all, this is from Kevin Beard to you, Golic. If you have to give up one of these for the rest of your life, beer or donuts? Which one?
Probably give up beer. That'd be hard too.
Well,
because
I already know where you're going to go.
I can go to another drink.
That's it.
I can find another one I like. Donuts. I mean that encompasses a lot. So yeah,
always whiskey.
Yeah, something else I could do that does a job.
Hey, here's something you and I share in common. I think God's greatest dessert creation is the donut.
Yes.
I don't care if it's 8 in the morning or 8 at night.
Oh, anytime.
A donut is the best sweet treat made.
No argument for me.
I had a French toast donut the other day.
I mean,
flavored French toast.
What's not to love?
It was phenomenal.
Absolutely love it.
All right, let's keep it food related.
Yeah.
This one from Chris Anderson. Dry rub or marinade, Golic?
That's a great one as well. I obviously in these I love them both. But I'm a particular fan of the dry rub.
We're walking hand in hand on food issues.
Yeah, I won't turn down a marinade, though. Understand that. It's like 1 and 1A.
It's not a close call for me, by the way.
No, it's not, really.
Oh, dry rub every day of the week.
Is it just the marinade that you don't want to get messy?
It just doesn't. If you cook your meat right and you season your meat right, you don't need all that sauce all over it.
I'm with you. I get it. How about this from Adnan? And this is interesting. This came up. Biggest blunder, Falcons losing the Super Bowl or their new stadium putting in a Chick-fil-A that's closed on Sundays. Does seem odd, doesn't it? When do the Falcons play there, on Sundays? It's closed.
I actually think
if Chick-fil-A's are all closed on Sundays, they're just keeping with what they normally do. So it is what they do. They are closed on Sundays.
Not to turn this serious, but I think the NFL could take a few lessons from Chick-fil-A. This is what we do. We don't make exceptions.
Yeah, we're not making exceptions.
We don't open on Sundays.
Yeah.
Period.
And we're not putting it up for public debate.
That's right.
Okay.
This is our role.
How we roll. And then Thomas says on a football one, how many games will Mitch Trubisky start this year? That's an interesting one. I absolutely think Glennon will start the season. Part of the Mitch train that started last week is the fact that Glennon didn't look good, going 2 for 8, throwing a pick 6 on his second pass. I think Glennon will be fine for them, but we all know the clock is running on when Mitch will get in there. Everybody talks about how he'll miss this year like it'd be a redshirt year. I don't see that happening. A lot depends a lot on the team and how well the team is doing, and certainly how well Glennon is playing. I think if he starts, barring injury, it's more the back half of the season. So I would say in the area sometime of the last 6 games, you may start to see him. I don't know if he'll start that many, but I think that's in the area of when it would be.
Number of games Mitch Trubisky will start this season. You put the over-under at 6.
Yeah.
I take the over.
You take the over?
I think Mitch Trubisky ends up starting. I've been perhaps fighting my own contrarian instinct on this, meaning everyone says Mitch Trubisky, when he's drafted, is going to be a massive bust. that I think when everyone says something like that, they're generally wrong. So I have to fight that. Is that why I got on the Mitch Trubisky train? But he certainly made me look good last week.
He absolutely did.
And when you just look at incentives, the Bears have an incentive to put Mitch Trubisky on the field. They do not have a long-term commitment to Mike Glennon.
Right.
They have a long-term commitment to Mitch Trubisky.
It's just you start that too soon before he's ready because the 13 starts is hanging there, and you for every person that you look at that says, look what he did in that game, how well he did, you have an analyst like a former quarterback saying, hold on a little bit now. When he's in the game, what he was doing, it was all man coverage. You didn't really see anything crazy out there. And that's fine. That's a fair assessment, but you also have to pat him on the back as well. Because if he went out there and played horribly, we'd have said something about that. So he played well. Whatever the circumstances were, if it was all man and it was easier because of that, doesn't matter. He did well. He showed some good poise. He showed some athleticism. Again, when it's man coverage, you can run a little farther because guys are covering. Those are all the intricate things you look at. But as a whole, you have to like what he did. No doubt about that.
That's Grill Golic. You can send your questions in for the big fella. NFL questions, live questions on Twitter at #Grill Golic. You actually have an update for us. What, your wife
I
is
do.
walking
My
across the
wife,
country?
she is doing the Notre Dame Trail. She would like to be walking on sunshine. Today is a 34-mile day, I believe, or 32-mile day. 32-mile day. 14 walk and 18 bike. It's the Notre Dame Trail. They start in Vincennes, Indiana. It's the last 317 miles Father Soren walked. That's who founded Notre Dame, and that's the last bit he walked to where Notre Dame is in South Bend. So there's 32 people that are walking and biking the entire way. Takes them 13 days. They started Sunday. It is now Thursday. We just saw, for those on radio, there was just a Twitter picture of my wife around a lot of the police. They're getting like a police escort because they're on road, so they have to be careful with the walking and the biking, and there's a number of them. So the great Indiana State Police there that are helping out, doing a great job of that. But yeah, she is 317 miles, mostly walking. They do some biking for the Notre Dame Trail. It's a cool thing.
That is awesome. Now, I think I heard you the other day say that you would not do this under any circumstances.
It's not that I wouldn't do it. I couldn't do it.
Okay.
I could. I wouldn't want to, but I couldn't with the knee that I had. It would just, over time, my knee feels great. I've had the stem cell a couple of times that has worked. I'm actually going to go do that again tomorrow. It's been fantastic. The premier stem cell in Colorado that I've worked with, they opened up a place in Arizona and Scottsdale as well. It has been great. But 13 days and 317 miles, that's a haul right there. And I think she's the only one in the family who could actually pull that off with the determination and physically fit to be able to do that. That's a grind.
We're going to grab Tim Kurkjian here just in a moment, but let me tell you something. I've always wanted to do something like this with my two sons as they get older.
Right.
Walk the Appalachian Trail, canoe the Lewis and Clark Trail up through Montana. Did you ever do anything like that with your boys? I mean, just let's go, get rid of the phones. We're bonding whether you like it or not.
No, our bonding was I was teaching them how to block and tackle.
Okay.
I thought we bonded incredibly well doing that.
They're here. Yeah. One of them, at least. They're around you. All right, Tim Kurkjian, ESPN MLB Insider, joins us now on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Get instant gold status at Shell. Join the Fuel Rewards program now at fuelrewards.com/gold. Good morning, Tim.
Hi, fellas. How are you?
Doing well, Timmy. So this the Stanton situation, 44 home runs, on pace for 60 now, and 61, he says, is his number, the Maris number, as opposed to before integration or the PEDs, whether you're looking at Babe Ruth or whether you're looking at Barry Bonds. Where do you stand on this whole thing from, we know what the record is, and that's not going to change, but the perception publicly of what the record is?
Well, this is a tricky question, but the record is 73. It's right there in the record book, and the beauty of it is you can interpret it any way that you like. We've never taken a record away from anybody for any reason in the history of baseball, so we shouldn't do it now. But I'm 100% believer that if anybody gets 60 or 61 into the Maris range, it will only enhance the legacy of Roger Maris. And anyone who thinks, somebody else passed him along the way, and therefore his story will go away, is ridiculous. it becomes even better anytime anyone gets near 61 home runs. For Maris to have passed, at least statistically, the greatest player of all time in Babe Ruth, and do it in 1961, it was a stunningly great story. It remains a great story. So to me, 60 and 61 are gigantic numbers, will always be gigantic numbers, no matter how many people pass it, including Giancarlo Stanton this year.
Tim, how do you see a record being broken enhancing the original record? I hear you. Roger Maris can live into eternity, but Giancarlo Stanton breaking his record actually enhances it. I'm trying to get with you. I'm thinking, okay, Emmitt Smith broke Walter Payton's record. We still talk about Walter Payton. But it seems to me having your record broken, I just have a hard time seeing how it enhances your status.
Well, it just allows us to, again, tell everybody who Roger Maris was. And for our young readers and listeners and viewers who weren't even alive when Roger Maris hit 61, it's an opportunity for us to explain that he won back-to-back MVPs, that he played on championship teams in New York and in St. Louis. He was a great defensive right fielder, had a great throwing arm. That's what I'm talking about, is it gives us another opportunity to explain to people just how great Roger Maris was in his prime.
Yeah, I definitely understand what you're saying, because for those that wouldn't have known, we have the beauty of Google today. You just type in a name and all of a sudden you can, oh, wow, that guy, that's interesting. Type in his name and there you go. You'll be able to learn something about it. I asked this earlier and then I said I wanted to ask you. We remember the Sosa and McGwire race and just how all caught up we were in it, breaking into regular programming. It's on the evening news nationally and not just sports stations like ESPN. If in the near future, I'm not saying this year, but in the near future, Stanton and Judge or Stanton and Bryce Harper or whoever, if the first week or second week of September are at 56 and 54 home runs and having some kind of battle that way, how would that be looked at publicly compared to, I know it wouldn't reach the zenith of Sosa and McGwire, but how high would it get? Would it get that big attention?
Well, it would get big attention, but the fact that they're not in the same league, Judge and Stanton, it's not the same thing. McGwire and Sosa, of course, were going for a record that had really never been approached, and they were doing it in the same league, and they were doing it going for the MVP of the league from the same division, all that. So I'm not sure there would be the same chase. However, Judge and Stanton, with their unbelievable size and their unbelievable power, to watch those two guys go at it, even if they're 1,000 miles apart, I think would be a really, really cool thing to watch. And I know it's been appointment television every time Judge comes to the plate, and certainly lately every time Stanton comes to the plate. So if we could watch that every night down the stretch, I'd be all over it, and I would love it. But it wouldn't be quite the same as McGwire-Sosa, at least in live back then, because of the proximity of those two cities, the rivalry between the Cubs and the Cardinals and all that.
Tim, how do you explain what's happened to Aaron Judge? What explains his second half performance here?
Well, this is the hardest game in the world to play, at least I think so, and I just think that teams have adjusted to him. They figured out how to get him out, and now he will have to make the adjustment, and I'm sure that he will. But I love basketball. I really love basketball. But nobody shoots 27% the second half after shooting 55% the first half. Nobody goes for 30 a night the first half and goes down to 7 a night the second half. That's what's happening to Aaron Judge because of the degree of difficulty of the game. Here is the star of the game, the face of the game for the first half of the season. And the second half, he struck out in 33 straight games, the major league record for a position player. This can only happen in baseball, where somebody can go from so great to struggling so badly, and usually without explanation. But the pitchers have found, and teams have found, if you throw it here, and you throw it hard here, there's a chance he's not going to hit it. And it really hurts, and this is a good thing for him, but a bad thing, that he's 6'7", 282. We've never had anybody that big playing Major League Baseball, and pitchers have a tendency to just chop you up when you're that big.
Timmy, team-wise, what's going on with the Dodgers is ridiculous. On pace for 116, and I'm sure they'll be as favored as much as the Cubs were. I think the Cubs were, 103 wins last year, 8 games better than the next highest winning team, and certainly the Dodgers are just ridiculous right now with what they're doing. Is it completely not only get there but win the World Series, or this season would be considered a bust because of how well they're playing?
Well, given they haven't won since 1988, the expectations are enormously high, which is why they went and got Yu Darvish to try to finish the job. But this, again, is baseball. There are no guarantees here. The Mariners won 116 games in 2001 and didn't get to the World Series. This is how it works. LeBron James, Kevin Durant do not touch the ball in every possession in this sport, which is what makes it so great, is that everyone's got to play eventually. Now, having said that, the Dodgers are so good right now. They are historically good, not just for the Dodgers franchise, but for the National League and all of Major League Baseball with the way they're playing right now. And I expect it to continue. I don't know if they're going to win 116 games, but I think they'll be the best team in baseball going into the playoffs. And then after that, there's still no guarantees of anything.
Well, who's the biggest threat in your mind to them once they reach the playoffs?
Well, if the Nationals get Bryce Harper back and Trey Turner back and Steven Strasburg back, and that team is humming on October the 1st, they're really good. It sounds ridiculous, but the Cubs, I think, could get hot enough to beat somebody such as the Dodgers in the postseason. And in the American League, if Houston clears up its pitching, they could win the World Series, and so could a couple other American League teams, including the Indians and maybe even the Red Sox. Having said all that, I think the Dodgers are going to win the World Series. I think they're the best team in baseball, but it just doesn't work that way when October rolls around. Anything can throw you off in this game, and that's how it works so often.
Tim, everyone we have this morning, everyone is talking about Giancarlo Stanton's home run streak, how it just ended. There was another streak going on, and maybe I read too much Moneyball. Maybe I liked Brad Pitt's performance a little too much, or Michael Lewis, I think, is a great writer. But on-base percentage, getting on base through a walk or through a hit, somehow has become much more fashionable. And Joey Votto had a 20-game stretch of reaching base at least twice safely. Also came to an end last night. But what is that? The second time this season he's had a streak like this. How do you feel about Joey Votto's streak? I mean, how can we put that in perspective?
Well, it's stunning given that Ted Williams is the only player in Major League history to have a streak longer than that, and he went 21 games. So to get on base 20 games in a row is a lot harder than people think. To get on base at least 2 times 20 games in a row has only been surpassed once, and that's by Ted Williams, who, for me at least, statistically at least, is the second greatest hitter of all time after Babe Ruth. So to do anything that Ted Williams did or really close to it, that's really saying something. It's stunning how great Joey Votto has been, especially the second half, most of the season for that matter, and to be able to do what he can do. I've seen him in batting practice in spring training and in games in spring training, purposely foul balls off down the left field line just to be ready for when the season begins to say, all right, I'm going to spoil this pitch. I can't handle this pitch, even though he can, and practice doing things like that. He is a magician at the plate, and he has really shown it lately.
Oh, what a great observation. What a great story. All right, thanks, Tim. Appreciate you jumping on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line with us this morning.
Thanks, Timmy. Appreciate it, man.
Okay, guys. See you.
I think the Dodgers are in the position of the Cubs. The Cubs are so heavily, they're going to win it, and they hadn't done it since 1908. So you want to talk about, obviously, the pressure. I think the Dodgers are right there. I mean, with the way they're playing. Because you always ask that. And Timmy says baseball is the hardest game. In his opinion, I have said the hardest thing in sports, I think, is hitting a baseball. Baseball is tough from the playoffs, the amount of teams that get in, and anything can happen, and winning a World Series. So you always ask that. If you don't, is your season a bust? That's hard to say it is if you get close. Say you make it to the World Series and you lose. Would people say that about the Indians last year, even though the Cubs were favored? But I think with the Dodgers, it is set up so well for them, and they don't even have Kershaw back yet, and they are just on an incredible tear.
You know, the Cubs are my answer to your question. You asked the question both of me and of Kurkjian. If there were a home run duel between Giancarlo Stanton and pick your favorite Major League Baseball player into September, much like Maguire-Sosa, what would it do to push baseball back into the conversation? What would it do to demand the spotlight return to baseball? And my answer to you is baseball just had its greatest gift last season as far as attention and meaningfulness, and that was the relevance of the Cubs.
Right.
The Cubs becoming the best team in baseball was the best thing they could have asked for. So this, by comparison, a home run, duel, I don't think it would do much. We just had the best thing baseball can ask for.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, and that's the shame. I wish it would do more than what I think it would really do. I agree. Hey, everyone, Mike Golic here. Support for Mike and Mike podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. With Rocket Mortgage, you can apply simply and understand fully so you can mortgage confidently. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLSconsumeraccess.org number 3030. Well, Greeny, we're halfway through another baseball season, and we're really seeing some players who stand out as winners.
Kind of like business travelers who win at business by staying at La Quinta Inns and Suites.
That's because you can put your La Quinta Returns loyalty points to work on the spot with instant free nights.
Just drive up with no reservation and instantly redeem points for a free night that same night simply by using the La Quinta app.
It's like hitting a grand slam.
With an app instead of a bat.
Well played.
Prepare to win at business by learning more about instant free nights and check out the summer rates at lq.com.
It's Mike and Mike on ESPN Radio and ESPN2. Will Cain sitting in for Greeny today along with Mike Golic. You can tweet us on the 100flowers.com Twitter feed. I'm at Will Cain, WILLCAIN. Well, at
ESPN Golic.
I follow you, but then once you follow somebody, you just forget. At ESPN Golic.
At ESPN Golic.
And, by the way, if you want to ask Golic questions today, we're doing a Grill Golic.
Yes, we are.
On Twitter, hashtag Grill Golic. Send in your questions for Mike. In the NFL, on life questions, on raising children, whatever it may be.
Yeah, we're at different stages. I'm 27, 26, 22. You're 9 and 6.
Yeah.
Wow.
I've already asked for advice before the show started.
Yes, you did. You are right in it, man. You are right in that Little League sports stuff going on.
That's where you went right away, and that's where my questions were right away.
Yeah.
You
are right there, man.
Lighten up. That's what the wife said.
Well, listen,
you're his dad, not his coach.
I will always say to God rest his soul, my father. He coached us in Little League, and I coached my kids in Little League. And when Mike was the oldest, so he was the first one I was going to coach in Little League. It was T-ball. And he said, you will love coaching your kids. He said, the parents are but he said, understand it can get ruined by parents. And he was right. They're the crazy ones out there. But it's a great experience and one you should definitely enjoy. And now that I've done it and gone back, I could do it more calmly because I can't sit there and say I was perfect at it either.
Oh, really?
Tough time to the delineation between father and coach, and where that line is. Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, you talk about how terrible parents can be towards the coach. But the thing is, what you do is you get invested in your child's success.
Yeah.
Not just you tell yourself, not just because of his athletic career,
right?
But because we teach life lessons through the prism of sports. So you come home going, "Well, did you give 100% there? Are you really committed?
About
what are we doing
effort,
here?
About team play, helping your teammate, no quit, and all that fun stuff rolled into then, getting the email from a parent, why isn't my kid playing more? And I would have a meeting before every team I coach with the players and the parents and say, we're going to learn the fundamentals of this sport. You're going to have fun because with their kids, you're going to have fun. And we're going to try and win along the way. But, that's not number one. I said, so I just wanted to tell the parents up front, if that's your motivation here for your kid to play one position all the time and to win all the time, I said, that's probably not going to happen here because I'd moved kids around to different spots and, just tried to let them in. And I know it's different. That's the one big thing. Your era of raising kids in Little League is way different than even when Mike and Jake and Sydney were doing that from the concept of playing multiple sports as opposed to just playing one, and a lot of it is a coach telling a kid you won't be on this team unless you're playing it year-round. I always love throwing out the stat of the players that got drafted in the NFL. 85% were multi-sport athletes in high school, and I've always thought that is the way to go. But it's way easier said than done, as I talked about,
right.
of between parents and coaches on the road for your athlete.
If you don't commit to a sport specifically
hard, yeah.
and go year-round, you get left behind.
It can be tough.
I read once, by the way, on a survey, and don't quote me on this because I'm not going to be able to source this, but when asked, most children have said their least favorite aspect of youth sports was the ride home with dad afterwards.
Can be. Yeah. It's a tough one for us dads to take, isn't it? Yeah.
Shut up.
Because at times we can't turn it off.
Right.
Exactly right.
So, friend of the show, what do we say here with Joe Thomas? One of the best offensive linemen
Joe Thomas,
in the NFL
the guy
right
who
now?
walks into the Hall of Fame, 5 years when he's done, one of the great offensive linemen to play this game, and a really, really good guy. Really good guy.
Offensive lineman for the Cleveland Browns. He spoke about the quarterback competition going on in Cleveland. Listen.
I would expect Brock to win because of his experience. And a rookie quarterback is the hardest position to get ready to play in your first year. And so there's no doubt he could win the competition. I definitely would expect probably Brock to win it. As a quarterback, it takes at least 2 or 3 years to have a basic level of understanding of NFL defenses and offenses to be able to operate proficiently out there on the field, especially in week one. I think that they're grooming Brock to be the starter in week one based on what I've seen.
And again, when he's saying he can beat him out, but he thinks Osweiler, sorry, he's talking about Deshaun Kaiser, the quarterback from Notre Dame, who another one of the rookie quarterbacks in his first preseason game. Slow start for him, better second half, throws a great deep ball, and did it a couple of times in that game. So that's the talk of, boy, these rookie quarterbacks, this particular group, maybe outside of Deshaun Watson because of experience, they need to sit and not play. And all of them looked good in their first preseason game, which obviously brings up questions.
Do you think Dak Prescott's success has completely warped our expectations of the success that a rookie quarterback can have?
I think that, and just today's game that says, "What have you? I need it now. I need you to perform for me right now." And you can, and it before the rookie wage scale, the last quarterback taken number one before the rookie wage scale was Sam Bradford, and you're paying a guy $50 million. So I think sometimes it was like, man, we're paying this guy all this money, get him on the field, where now you feel you can take a break a little more because the money investment is basically almost cut in half from guaranteed money to what it was to what it is now. So I think you feel you can take your time a little more, but there's still, if I take that guy in the first round, there's expectations. It's just a matter of when you start the clock, and a lot goes into it. A lot goes into it, from the team you're on to how well that team is doing that year to how well the bridge, quote-unquote, bridge quarterback is playing.
So by the end of this year, how many teams do you think will have made the turn to committing to those? I mean, we've got the Texans,
right,
the Browns, we've got the Bears.
Not going to happen in the Chiefs. I don't think Mahomes is going to be displacing Alex Smith this year. We know Mahomes is going to be the guy going forward, and they'll start that transition, something that Alex Smith, unfortunately, is used to with Kaepernick out in San Francisco. That's where, again, I say there are other factors involved. Houston, nobody expects Cleveland and or Chicago to be competing for a division. They do. And they should. You should go into every week thinking you're going to win the game. But for us in the discussion we're having, we don't feel those two teams are going to be involved in the hunt. Houston Texans, top-ranked defense, nice weapons on offense, quarterback situation going on. What is their motive? Deshaun Watson may win that job outright, much like the quarterback that got the money in Matt Flynn in Seattle all of a sudden is beaten out by a third-rounder in Russell Wilson, his rookie year. So that may happen there, or if because of the pressure that Houston is supposed to be good, if they're not and Savage is struggling, they'll yank him. They'll yank him and put Deshaun Watson in, because there are expectations this year of, okay, Savage is the veteran, certainly not a veteran who's got great stats behind him, but we're going to trust him early on if he is a starter in week one, because this team has expectations. Cleveland and Chicago, they're building for the future with these quarterbacks. So now it's a matter of, when do you give them the shot? What do you do? Because you have 52 other guys in the locker room who a lot think as soon as you go to a rookie that you're kind of bailing a little bit on the season, saying, okay, we've started that process right now. Now we're going to go through some growing pains, because I don't care how good you were coming in or how good you look in preseason, rookie quarterbacks are going to struggle. They can look good. Dak looked very good. Dak was the exception more than the rule on how you look. And can you put in there the O-line he played with? He had a rookie running back who was obviously great as well. The defense wasn't great there, but he had a good surrounding cast. But still, he was an exception more than a rule. You remember? Let's go back. Peyton Manning threw 28 interceptions his rookie year. Troy Aikman wasn't great shakes coming out as a rookie. You can go down the line. It's a 50-50 proposition with those top guys.
I believe over the course of his career, Joe Thomas has blocked for something like 20 different starters for the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah.
That's since 2007.
It's crazy. And they did get some help for them on the interior line this year, which is good because they needed that. So maybe the quarterback won't be running for his life as much in Cleveland.
Either Osweiler or Kaiser will be 21, and I imagine we're going to see 22 before the end of this season.
Yeah, I would agree.
You bring up an interesting point about how the other guys in the locker room feel once you move to a rookie quarterback. And I think I know the answer to this question, but have you ever been on a team that you feel like was not doing everything it could to win the game you're going into?
No, I mean, when I was in Houston, Warren Moon was our quarterback. When I was in Philadelphia, it was Randall Cunningham. Then he got hurt, and then we went through the tons of, quarterbacks, I think 4 or 5 quarterbacks, including a Jim McMahon who had got injured as well. But Jim McMahon. And then in Miami one year, it was Dan Marino. So it was never a position like people. I know where you're going. People talking about like the Jets this year.
That's exactly where I'm going. Can we count on, and I think this applies to the Browns as well, a quarterbacking decision to be made with the purpose of playing the best quarterback, with the purpose being let's try to win the game? Or will Hackenberg be the guy, not because he's the best, but because either we need to find out what he is, or we're not interested in winning because we're in the Sam Darnold sweepstakes?
Yeah, see, the tanking in football gets a little dicey to me, because I think what happened with the Jets is they tried to load up, and they have old guys, and then they just said, okay, we're not going where we thought we were going to go. We had some older guys. We need to shed that and kind of start over again. So I think I think they have to get Hackenberg in there at some point. See what you have. You have a second-round kid who they basically wouldn't put in a game last year, which tells you what they were seeing in practice. Okay? Because once the preseason games are over, and all you have is practice then. And they wouldn't put him in the game. So that to me speaks volumes to not even get him sometime in the game. You got to find out. You spent a second-round draft pick on that guy. You got to find out what he can do, unless you just don't think he's ready at all to step in there and play. So if he goes in, Jets, another team, obviously you don't think is going to compete this year, while the players certainly should think they will. At some point, you're going to have to go down that road. And the thing about the players that I talked about in the locker room, players also know. Players understand. Like when Deshaun Kaiser goes in for whatever reason, Joe Thomas knows Joe Thomas knows it right now that it's going to happen at some point. Guys in the Bears locker room know that eventually it's going to go to Trubisky. Just when is that going to happen? And so you kind of change your mindset when that happens. You say, okay, now the clock starts on us going forward. Now how long will this take?
A reminder that this Saturday, our next top-ranked boxing title fight is a unification battle for the first time in over a decade between undefeated 140-pound champions. Terrence Crawford put his WBO, WBC, and Ring Magazine world titles on the line against IBF and WBA champ Julius Indongo. The bout begins at 10 p.m. Eastern live on ESPN on the ESPN app.
Can there be a problem in boxing when you just mentioned 5 or so different places you can have a title?
Yes.
I mean, holy smokes.
Yes.
Just throw 3 letters out there, and it's probably associated with boxing.
Let's keep this quarterback conversation going. I am fascinated by the idea of how do you know when a quarterback basically is a bust, that he's no good. And does that mean you're not going to play him, which I think is a really hard thing, I would imagine, for players to get their minds around. Also, keep more Grill Golic questions coming. # Grill Golic on Twitter. We have Tony Dungy. We have Stephen A. Smith.
Guys don't really talk about antiperspirant. Despite that, 91% of Dove Men Plus Care users recommend it. Here's what they said.
It blocks the, perspiration, I think is the fancy word.
It's comfortable. It smells nice. My girl likes the smell.
Well, it's hard. I think it's quite masculine.
My underarms aren't the worst thing at the gym.
It's kind of like the Hoover Dam from my armpits, I guess.
Dove Men Plus Care Antiperspirant. Tough on sweat, not on skin.
I like some of the Grill Golic questions that are going on. There's certainly a number of football questions, but Jason asks, stuck on a deserted island, he said desert island. Or
not a desert island? You got excited for a second.
I did. Deserted island with one person, Stu Gatz or LeVar Ball?
This is just all this question is how mean are you going to be to Stu Gatz?
Oh no, it would be Stu Gatz. Are you kidding me? This isn't even a hard question. It would be Stu Gatz all the way because at some point I could just bury him in the sand.
I like this one from David DeQuasey. A movie you can watch over and over.
You know what? One of the movies, it's when you pass it, you stop. Armageddon.
Yeah, I'm in. If I'm flipping through and I see Armageddon, I'm stopping.
There are a number of movies that I stop on, but Armageddon, it's like a joke in the house now. God forbid, and I'm flipping channels and I see Armageddon. I'll just, make and my wife will go, don't even tell me Armageddon's on. I'm like, yeah, Armageddon's always on somewhere. But yeah. And who's that physicist guy that does those shows? I love him. Who's that? Say it again. Neil deGrasse Tyson, I love that guy. Love explaining space and all. He said that basically Armageddon violates every space rule there is.
So?
It's exactly right.
So?
I love that guy, but I don't care. Violate away. Right. Because, I love it. I love watching that. Josh wants to know meats or sweets? Well, sweets.
Sweets?
Yeah, it's sweets. Definitely. I like my meats, but I'll go with the sweets.
I think you made a mistake with that one.
You think so? You'd go meats?
Yeah.
Really? Okay.
So, talking about quarterback questions, it's amazing to me that in the state of Florida, the only settled quarterback position is the one in Tampa Bay.
Right.
You mentioned that you're watching Hard Knocks right now.
Mm-hmm.
Jameis Winston is the man in Florida that has that position locked down. Who does Jameis Winston remind you of when he is talking?
When he's talking?
Yes.
Oh, I haven't even thought of that.
Come on, it's a dead ringer.
Well, you're
not exact.
You're going to have to
but it's
just tell.
And usually dead ringers are exact.
Yeah.
But it's very. So I'm going to back up 10 seconds and say very similar. Charles Barkley.
I'll have to listen
accent.
for that.
I don't know if it's that region of Alabama, but Bessemer, Alabama, perhaps. Jameis sounds like Barkley.
I need him to then say knucklehead, and that will really be able to tell if I could do that or not.
Speaking of Bessemer, by the way, just another little quick note. 27,000 people in Bessemer, Alabama.
Okay.
That's roughly the size of the town I came from in Texas. An inordinate number of good professional NFL football players.
Really?
Of course, you have Jameis.
Yeah.
You have Bo Jackson. You have D'Amico Ryans, Kerry Rhodes, Elijah Nevitt. I mean, I'm starting to not know who they are, but
still, they got to the league.
I mean,
wow. I did not know that. For a town of 27,000.
It'd be fascinating to know which town in America per capita has produced the most NFL players. Himbo.
Oh, wow.
That'll be easy.
Don't give him anything tough or anything like that.
Looks like Barkley and Winston were born 30 miles apart from each other. So that
30 miles from Bessemer. Yeah.
30 miles apart. That's interesting. I'll have to listen more because I watch Hard Knocks. I love it.